You're listening to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Okay, I have a question.
For me?
This question is everyone.
For everyone.
This question is unrelated to the side chat topic at hand, but I don't care.
It's our podcast. We can do what we want.
I'll ask whoever the fuck I want, whatever I want, whenever I want. Or you can just stop listening. Do you know, this is, let me preface my question. I'm tantalizing with my question. This is very important. And we've talked about this a little bit here and there on past episodes recently, but I really have drilled it down to, this is the question that you need to be able to answer. And if you cannot answer it, we have a problem. Okay? Okay. The question is this. Do you know what you want your career to do for you in this phase of your life?
Yes, I feel like we've been piecing together that question over multiple podcast episodes, and we've just distilled it. That's it. That's the one.
This is, so again, not to go on a complete and utter tear that's unrelated to this episode, but if you don't approach your career that way, what you're going to do, and what most people are going to do, is they're going to fixate on, I don't know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to do?
What's the question that we get?
What's my passion?
The time. I don't know what I
don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. Over and over and over again. From people I love you all who are listening to this, who have worked with me, who have done this to me, as if I'm a victim of it. I am. I have been victimized by this over and over and over again.
As have all of you.
I don't know what I want to do. It's a fallback. It's a fallback fear. It's a fallback question. The question is not, it's the wrong question. Throw it out. The question is not, I don't know what I want to do, because what that emphasizes is that what you do is more important than any other facet of your life, that no other facet of your life is dependent on what you do, that I am pointing my finger up to the heavens right now. Like,
she literally
very
is.
know-it-all, very Hermione Granger right now. What it does is it puts you almost at the service of your career and figuring out what's my passion? What do I want to do? As if you're almost like subservient to this idea rather than what it should be, which is that your career is meant to service you and your life.
And all
you are
aspects
supposed to be in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is supposed to do all sorts of things for you. It's supposed to set you up for success in all the areas of your life. It's supposed to bring you stability and financial security, if that's what you want, creativity and fulfillment, if that's what you want. But when we chase it as if it's, a thing, as if it's, I don't know what I want to do, then we kind of give our power away.
Because then you're waiting on that thing to reveal itself in whatever time it chooses to reveal itself, and you're just waiting around at the effect. That's not how it works, though.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is like the same with dating. We know this. We know I love a dating and career analogy, but it's the same. How successful are people when they chase after other people? Going, love me, love me, love me. It's not great, because when you're doing that, you're so focused on getting love that you're not asking, is that the right person for me? Is that the right person that I should be wanting to receive love from? Have they earned the right to be in my presence? That's the energy with which I want people to go about their careers. Like, what is this going to do for me? What do I want this to do for my life? How do I want to work in a way that sets me up for feeling really good and successful in all of the ways? And if you do not know the answer to that question, well, then today is the first day that we're accepting applications for new coaching clients. Because to distill it, that is what we're doing. Like, that is what we're doing with each person, is we are helping you stop being subservient to the idea that I need to chase down a career and make it love me and hope that it will provide for me all of the needs and all of the fulfillment and all of the wishes that I want. And instead come at it from a very, dare I say, regal place.
I like it. I like the imagery.
Yeah. Like, you're sitting on your throne, you're staying on your throne, you're not getting off of it and running and chasing squires down. That's beneath you. We're not doing that.
No. What do we need the squires to do for us at this phase of our reign?
They need to come and kneel at our throne and we say yes or no or maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of energy that we need to approach career with.
And here's the truth. Most people come into coaching, the kind of coaching that we do, with that question, I need to figure out what I want to do. Can you help me figure out what I want to do? And the first part of our work is essentially reframing the question to, that's not even what we're doing here. That's not really the answer. That's not the answer you're really seeking. And that answer is not empowering.
Isn't going to satisfy you.
Isn't going to ultimately get you what you want. So the first part of our work is we got to figure out the better question and then answer that one, because now you can do something about that. Here's the cool part. If you're listening to this and you're on board, you can come with that question. You are so prepared for the work that you do in coaching.
You can come with the question I hate. It's fine.
Sure.
Everyone else has done it before.
You can come with that one too. But if you come with the question, I want to figure out what I want my career to do for me and the rest of my life at this phase, man, can we work with that? And man, can you make progress quickly if that's the mindset you come into it with? So we're prepping you to get the absolute most out of this.
Yeah.
By telling you the right question to be asking in the first place.
Yeah. I've been saying it recently that I don't honestly care what I do. Some of you all are like, what? I don't. Not really. What I've been saying is, what I want my career to do for me is to provide me with an abundance of time and freedom and money and love. And there was something else.
Connection.
Whatever.
Creativity.
No, it wasn't those things.
That might be somebody else's list.
There was like 5 big things. And notice that I'm not saying I want to be a coach for the rest of my life. I'm saying this is what I want my career to set me up for. And if it takes a slightly different turn or shape than I'm expecting, but it gives me those things, I'm on board.
It's a win
for that ride.
That's a win.
I'm on board. But there's a lot of things that get in the way from us being able to figure out the answer to that better question. Like, what do I want my career to do for me? Because we have a lot of beliefs, we have a lot of fears, we have a lot of programming that tells us that's not the right question to be asking. And so we have to do a lot of inner work before we can even get to the point where we can answer that question. That question is like, it sounds like it's ground, it's like ground zero. We kind of have to then dig into some sub layers before we can get back up to base level and then build on top of that question.
And don't worry, we built that into our coaching process. We know what it takes. We know where you're starting.
Exactly.
And we know ultimately what's going to get you the real answers and the real momentum that you need. Like, that's why we built the process we built over the last decade. Yeah. We know how it works.
So if you're tired of asking questions that maybe you sense are kind of not deep enough, or not working, or clearly not getting you the results, because if they did, you would be satisfied, then that is what the process of coaching is for. It's for getting you to the point where you can very confidently say, this is what I want out of my life and career. This is what I want it to do for me. And now here I am coming up with a plan for going about making that happen and being held accountable for making that happen. So, okay. I'm not going to go belabor it ad nauseum. I'm going to tell you that you want to talk to us about the possibility. We'd love to talk to you. We're going to, we do this a few times a year where we take on new clients. You have to fill out a form. just so that we get some idea about who you are and what you're going through. And we'll get on the phone and we'll chat with you if we think, so that we can figure out if it's a good fit. Because I don't want to work with anyone. Kristen doesn't want to work with anyone who's not right. We got to make sure that we're actually going to be able to help you to the degree that you want and need to be helped. And so when you fill out a form, you're not necessarily saying, absolutely, I'm doing this. I mean, you can, if you feel that convicted already, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. If you're serious and you really want to talk and see all right, I think this could work for me. I think this is what I want. Let's just make sure. Great. We'll talk. So fill out the form in the show notes or ClarityOnFire.com. The Work With Us tab has our one-on-one coaching page. You can peruse that and fill out the form there. Now, we can't take on a lot of people. We are 2 people who have a limited amount of time.
Our enrollment window,
so it is a little bit first come, first serve.
We only do this a couple times, maybe 3 times a year. The rest of the time, we have a wait list. So there is a little bit of urgency just in that when our schedules are full, they're full, and we put back up that wait list. But we particularly clear our schedules a few times a year to take on a new round of people. And today is the first day of one of those periods. So if you are ready to get answers to that deeper question going into 2023, we got to start now, frankly.
Yes. So, a limited number of spots, 10-ish. I don't know. That's always a good estimate of how many people we could take on. And we have 2 options. We've got a 6-month option. That's kind of the normal traditional option. And then we do have a smaller 3-month option. There is a pretty big difference between the 2. And we would, if you're interested and you're not sure what's better for you, we'd talk you through that, or we'd help you figure that out when we get on the phone with you. But you have until technically 2 Fridays from now, the 30th. Again, first come, first serve though. So, I mean, to a degree, obviously, we only have 10 spots. So the sooner you fill that form out, the sooner we can talk to you.
Okay. So we would like to hear from some of you who feel like this is the right time. This is the right thing. You're ready to do that deep work, because it is deep work, but it is on purpose, because it's not going to give you the surface level Band-Aid solutions that you've been getting. We're going to set you on the track for what's going to make a real difference in your career, in your life in general, in your sense of who you are and what you're going after and what to put your energy behind, so you don't have to keep waffling. Because I know we have a lot of wafflers, a lot of indecisive people who don't feel strongly about what to do next because they feel so overwhelmed. If that's you
could waste a lot of time doing that if you want to, and you probably have. You could keep wasting a lot of time doing that.
Or you could not.
Or you could not.
So we'll keep reminding you, but this is your announcement that today is day 1 of Alert! And we'd like to hear from you if you just resonated with everything we just said in the last 10 minutes.
Yep. Then it's time to talk to us. So to side chat now, tell me about this experience you had with your client. We're just going to start off with the story.
Yeah, there was a client experience I had recently that made me feel like this is a discussion worth having with all of us, with all of you. And he came to coaching, and it was one of those things where we'd been coaching for a little while and honing in on some of the changes that he wants to make. And this is really normal. At some point, it feels like I want to work on or improve or fix or whatever you want to call it, all these different areas of my life at once. Like, I want to figure out my career direction, and I want to get my financial life in order, and I want to work on people pleasing, and I want to work on my relationship, my marriage, my parenting, all of it. And it tends to happen a lot as you're becoming really self-aware of all of your different tendencies. It's like a big old spotlight gets shined on all the areas of your life that are not quite aligned with your vision of what you want or with who you know you're becoming. And that can be really overwhelming for a couple of reasons. First of all, most of us are already too busy with just like normal life stuff. And now here you are wanting to improve every area of your life simultaneously. And for him in particular, and I think for a lot of us, the desire to quote unquote fix everything simultaneously or improve everything all at once was really coming from this place of, I already feel like I should have figured some of this stuff out, or I already feel like I'm behind, or I don't want it to take forever for me to get all these different areas of my life squared away. And so in order to save time and go faster and get where I want to go, get to my ultimate vision of my life, I have to do it all at once. And it was this time pressure that was making everything feel urgent. Is this relatable? I feel like this has got to be relatable. I know it was relatable for me.
Well, I mean, they're not going to be able to answer you, but I can say, yes, you know my feelings about time. They're very complicated. It's why I want to be a fae or a vampire or something that has a lifespan of many hundreds of years so that I don't feel like I'm constantly running out of time. I am very precise. And our relationship to time feels like it changes as we get older. And the older we get, the faster time feels like it's moving. And I really believe that that's not just a theory, that's true. Because as a kid, a whole summer would feel like so long. And that's because a whole summer is a huge percentage of your life when you're only 10.
Yep.
Now a whole summer is a drop in the bucket when you're in your 30s. And I can only imagine how it feels when you're in your 80s. Do you just go to sleep and you wake up and then it's September? Like, I mean, it's scary to think how quickly time moves. So absolutely, I understand the urgency that a lot of us feel, especially the older we get and the more serious it feels like, well, actually, this is a thought that's just now occurring to me. This is not revolutionary. I'm just putting it into words for myself right now. I think the older we get, things feel more serious because on some level, we conceptually know we have less time. We do, yep. Because at some point, we are all going to run out of it. Like we are, regardless of what we think does or doesn't happen after this, we are time bound for a finite period in human bodies that will eventually expire. And the more time goes by, the less we have of it. And it freaks us out. And so we feel like we got to pack it all in. And it's more serious. Everything gets more serious.
Yeah. I think there's always a human subconscious awareness of the fact that we don't have infinite time. So there's two elements of this that I think are worth getting into. One is this time conversation and the fact that there's always going to be that part of your brain that's telling you you're running out of time. You're running out of time. We don't have infinite time. And we know it. We know it. And so there feels like this constant urgency and there's pressure. The part of it is this time ticking clock that we can't exactly turn off. And part of it is
human selves.
Yep. And part of it is this feeling like I haven't done enough and I'm behind. And it's maybe because of something that I did, right? That I haven't done enough yet, or I'm late to this whole awareness, self-awareness and being more intentional with my life game. So I got to make up for lost time. Again, it is kind of a time thing, but it's also like, how do I know where to start when I feel like everything is urgent? So there's two questions here. How do I deal with the ticking time clock? And how do I choose where to put my limited energy and focus when everything feels urgent?
Okay.
Those are the two questions I want us to not get answers to, but have a meaningful conversation around, because I think that's where people's brains go all the time.
Yeah. Mine too.
Mine too.
Okay. So here's what I know. approaching anything from a reactive place, a place of fear or anxiety, is not going to A, lead to good results, B, cause you to enjoy how you've spent your time, C, make you feel like your time is really slowing down. Approaching anything from a state of anxiety and urgency makes time feel like it's going faster. Would you agree? In a bad way.
Yes.
In a like, you know how sometimes you can trip and fall and it feels like you're falling. You can feel like
for
every
hours.
beat of your fall. And somehow it's going really fast, but it's also like going incredibly slow at the same time.
Okay. I'm also thinking when you're on hold for a customer service.
Oh, God.
Every minute feels like 30 minutes. You're like, it's been 6 minutes. I've been listening to this terrible music.
Right. So I think when we are rushing, and that can literally be, oh my God, I have to get to the airport. I have a flight today and I have to pack all these things. I never feel more anxiety than when I have to pack up my house and go somewhere else. I don't care if it's just to my parents' house for one night. Like, because I'm me and I have to leave my house in the state that I want to come back to it in. Right. And so I also have to take all of these things and put them in a bag. All of these disparate items. It's like a terrible scavenger hunt. Then you have to put them all in a bag. And if you're going overseas for 2 weeks, God help me.
That's
because
way worse.
There's so many things that need to be in a bag.
Then they have to be certain sized items in certain bags because
bags within bags. It's awful. So many bags, so little time. I get so anxious about it. Like so anxious about it. So anyway, when you rush and when you are coming from a place of anxiety, time both speeds up in that you feel like you're constantly tripping and somehow you're tripping toward a conclusion and you don't feel like you're graceful and you feel like, oh my God, I just want to pump the brakes, but I can't. And also it feels interminable in the worst way. Like it's the worst combination of too fast and too slow when you're coming from a place of anxiety. So my first recommendation is that we can't change the fact that we have a perception of time. Okay. We need to have it. It's built into the human system. We can interpret it differently. We can choose how we want to react to that knowledge. And so your client is reacting to that knowledge, like many of us, most of us do, from a place of urgency and scarcity. Like, I have a finite amount of time. It's really important what I do. I need to do all of these things, but I feel like I can't, and I need to pick one. So my question is, how do we respond differently when we change our perception to one not of scarcity, but potentially abundance? Like, how do we switch to a mindset of, I have enough, I have more than enough, when we also know that we are actually running out of it? How do we do that? Because that's like a spiritual task, by the way. Like, and I've done a lot of this work and it's hard. Okay. It's very, very hard. I'm not telling you that I like it or that I'm an expert at it, but it is possible and it is necessary if you want to enjoy your life.
Yep. And the way, as you're talking through that, what's coming to my mind is we can't, for better or for worse, we can't change the amount of time we have. The actual number of days, years, hopefully decades we have left. That's one thing we just don't have control over. What we can change, though, is what you're talking about, which is our perception of time and how we spend our time with the time that we have. So you can't actually shut that ticking time clock off in the back of your mind. And to some degree, I don't think we even want to, because there is something, if you knew you were immortal, you would never feel the need to.
There'd never be any pressure.
You never feel very much motivation.
I don't know you would ever be challenged.
It's like, I can do that tomorrow, or I can do that next year, or I can do that next century. It would all blend together. There's something valuable about knowing, if I'm not going to live forever and I want to live my life in the way that feels the best for me, I can't just sit on that indefinitely. So I don't think that's the goal, is to convince ourselves to shut that part of our brains off. I think the goal is to do what it takes to perceive time as being slower and more meaningful, which you can do, because we all know that even though you can't actually make a second longer or shorter than it is, or a minute longer or shorter than it is, there's a lot you can do to make it feel longer or shorter. And feeling constantly overwhelmed, feeling constantly rushed, as Rachel said, feeling scattered and unfocused tends to make time go quickly, because you feel like you're constantly just getting things together and constantly trying to figure out what to focus on next, and constantly jumping from thing to thing to thing and rushing. And then all of a sudden the day's gone and the week is gone. And then you're like, what did I even do? That's not the experience we want of time. What makes time tend to feel more meaningful is when we do deep focused work, or we feel very present in whatever we're choosing to put our attention on at that time. So when you are trying to fix or improve 6 areas of your life at once, what you're actually doing is making your experience of time go really fast and feel really stressful and anxiety producing.
Yeah.
When you decide, I want to go deep in this one area of my life, and I want to give a lot of my energy and focus to that, and I want to get really intentional about that, and I want to learn, and I want to grow, and I want to expand in that area of my life, 2 things happen. First of all, time feels like it's moving slower because you're not jumping all around. You're deeply going into something. And it feels more fulfilling too, because you actually see progress and you see growth and you see realizations coming to you that couldn't when you were distracted by 16 other things. And there's a side effect of that, which is, as we talk about all the time in coaching, if you are working on one area of your life, it's not to the exclusion of every other area of your life. You will see, it's like that phrase, a rising tide lifts all ships. If you decide, I really want to get a lot of clarity on my career, and I want to figure out how to identify and attract the right next career move, you're going to learn so much about yourself in that deep work that will positively impact your health, your relationships, your money. All these other areas of your life will be positively impacted. So when you shift your attention to another area at some point, you're not starting back where you were. You're starting elevated. So you're making time feel more focused and more meaningful and more fulfilling. And you're actually improving all these areas at once while only focusing on one. That to me is a win-win.
I agree.
That's a sneaky way of doing what you really wanted to do by seemingly just picking one thing.
You know, this is going to sound like a tangent. It's not. Today, like tomorrow, really, is the 1-year anniversary of my flood. 1 year.
Wow.
September 1st. How dare it ruin Hogwarts Day for me?
What a terrible day to be flooded.
I mean, there's never a good day. We're like, oh, this would be a convenient day to have your life upended. But in that year, I have done a lot of stuff. And in some senses, yes, I was doing multiple things at once, because we're always doing multiple things at once. It's not like we're actually saying stop and do only one thing. It's just, I think you can have one focal point at a time, one priority at a time, right? And everything else kind of becomes like background noise to that. So for a while, my priority became my living situation, and to the exclusion of other things. And then my priority became getting clear on what direction we were going with in business for a little while. And then my priority became doing this whole dating experiment on Bumble that I did for, a couple of months. And when I look back, and I talk about this in last month's Normal Person episode with me, where I talk about I dated in some way, shape, or form 7 guys in the span of like 9 weeks. That's it. 9 weeks. And I was a different person at the beginning and end of that 2.5 month period. And it's been a couple of months now since that period kind of ended, or maybe a month and a half or whatever. And I'm in a different place now, I think, than I was then. So if you look back on my year, every area of my life literally got renovated, literally and figuratively got renovated. And I'm looking toward, what my vision and plan is for 2023. And it's very different than what my vision and plan, my vision and plan for 2022 was different. And then this happened. And then I had to have a different vision and plan, but whatever, right? Like it's going to be a different year than the last one was. And I wasn't necessarily trying to focus on everything at once. I kind of understood that like one thing at a time is allowed to be your priority. And in doing that, everything got renovated.
Yep.
Everything got renovated. Yes. And
you made a lot of progress.
Very thoroughly too, right? Like in a year, I somehow inadvertently on purpose renovated every area of my life, but I wasn't like necessarily, I mean, yes, obviously at times it felt like I was jumping from thing to thing to thing, but when I was doing the dating thing, the other things felt like they were more background noise. Know what I'm saying? And when we were doing the business stuff, I wasn't really focused on the dating stuff yet. So, and I made way more progress than I think I would have if I had started out in 2022 going, okay, I'm going to renovate my house. Like, what if I'd chosen to renovate my house? I never would have done that, by the way. Sometimes the universe chooses things for you. And I'm going to renovate our business. Oh, and by the way, I think I'm going to like join an app and I'm going to renovate my dating life. Like, if I had chosen to do all of that at once, I would have made, as Greg McKeown says in Essentialism, which is the precursor to Effortless. We did a book club on Effortless. We did not do one on Essentialism. It came out like 2014 or 15 or something, way before we had a podcast. But he says, you can either make a millimeter of progress in a million different directions, or you can make miles of progress in one direction. And that really changes how much you're capable of getting done and how much your time turns out, like how worthwhile your time is. Like by choosing to seemingly do less and go slower, you end up doing more and deeper, and it becomes more fulfilling and more meaningful and more impactful. But you have to be willing to believe that if I slow down, if I focus on one thing at a time, if I prioritize, literally, he talks about in that book, the definition of priority literally means one thing. So when you say priorities, you're actually contradicting yourself. Like it's not even like priorities plural is not actually possible. Priority is literally meant to be one thing. So if you actually truly prioritize, you're not going to lose time. You're going to gain time. It takes a lot of faith and being okay with getting uncomfortable to try on that mentality.
Yep. And if you need help with that faith, I am willing to bet probably all of us have had the experience of life forcing you to prioritize something for a period of time. Maybe it's, as Rachel said, you have a flood, or you have a home issue that forces you to put a lot of energy on your living situation and make massive improvement on that, not to the exclusion of everything else in your life, but everything else gets pushed back in importance. Maybe if you have gone through a divorce and that takes up all of your energy and focus and attention for a little while, but you emerge a different person on the other side of that. Maybe you got laid off and all of a sudden you'd been just chugging along in your day-to-day job And now you have to really focus on, what do I want next? Where am I going next? And those are just a few really big examples. Sometimes it's smaller things. Sometimes or maybe it's an illness in the family, or an illness that you're having, a health issue. Mm-hmm. And you are required to almost put blinders on to other areas of your life and hone in on what do I need in this one area right now. I bet you've had one of those experiences, big or small, before. And if you look back, I bet you could recognize how much progress you made in a relatively short amount of time, and how you emerged different and more experienced, or you grew as a person, or maybe you gained some skills or gained some self-reliance through that you wouldn't have if you'd been trying to do it as one of many priorities. So you have done this before, but you maybe didn't do it intentionally. Life might have forced this upon you. What we're saying is, you don't have to wait for life to force you to focus on one thing at a time because of a emergency, because that's usually how it's going to work. If life is forcing you to focus on something, it's probably because it's urgent and there's an emergency. You can choose to focus on something that you want to make progress on before the emergency happens. And recognizing that it's happened to you before, and you made a lot of progress in a short amount of time when you had to, can fuel your faith that the same thing will happen if you do it on purpose this time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to hold yourself up by again, kind of putting those blinders on. Not to say, I'm working on my relationship now, so I'm not going to go to work. I'm not going to pay bills. I'm not going to eat good food. I'm not going to exercise. And that's all I'm going to think about and focus on. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about putting some of the other areas of your life on maybe a little bit of autopilot. Like, go through the motions. Do what you got to do. Check the boxes. But then don't spend that much more time on it for a little while. And instead, devote your energy to, here's where I want to make a lot of progress. Knowing that those other areas will be positively impacted when you come back to them. They won't be in the same spot.
It's a domino.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we're just picking the first domino.
So how do you pick the first domino? I bet that's a question that's coming up. How do I even know what to pick?
Well, first, know that you can't choose wrong. That's one of the problems here, is thinking that there's a right choice, and that if I don't get it right, I will irrevocably mess up my future and I will miss opportunities. So a huge part of this comes down to the mindset of, do you believe in a benevolent universe, or do you believe in a hostile one? If you believe in an unkind universe where if you choose something and that's it, you'll never get an opportunity ever again, then yeah, everything becomes very high pressure. Everything becomes really scary. Every decision becomes really difficult to make because you feel like, I could get it wrong. If you believe in a benevolent universe where if something is right for you, it'll come back around if you don't see it or you miss it the first time, then life gets a lot easier. And okay, random story, but this is like a great universe story that I told Kristen the other day that'll help. This is what I mean when I say benevolent universe. My former, we loved her, our energy healer, Heidi, she retired, so we couldn't work with her one-on-one anymore, but I still keep in touch with her. And I was emailing her recently, and she told me this story about how her oldest son, when he was young, like he went to community college right out of high school. And every semester he tried like 3 semesters in a row to register for this biology class. And every single time he would try to be like, I don't even know if this was like pre-internet registration or not. I mean, I think he's older than you and I, Kristen. So like, I don't know how he was signing up for classes at the community college like 20 years ago or whatever, but he tried And every single time it was already full. Like as soon as he would try to be the first in the door and it was full. And he tried like 3 times and it just never worked. So he never took a science class. And then years later, he's like going back to school. He's going to properly like finish his degree and go to an actual university. And so he needs a science class. So he registers for this summer. It's not even a biology class. It's like some sort of like environmental science class or something like that. And that is where he meets his wife. And she had only registered for that class like the day before because she'd canceled a study abroad trip. So like this was years in between him being like a teenager who was trying to register for a class and then being a young adult who was going back to college. And like the universe was like, nah, don't take that class. Nope. Can't take a science class. Nope. Can't take a science class. And so it's just like, he kept trying to get on the wrong bus. And the universe was like, nope, nope. Slapped him away from that bus every time until the right bus came around and they said, please proceed. Get on this bus. Like that's a benevolent universe. And so if you don't believe in that, it becomes really, really, really hard to make any decisions because everything feels too weighty and too pressury and too important. If you have some semblance of like trust or faith that like, okay, I'm not going to screw over my entire life by making this one choice, that there are infinite number of streams that can lead to the river that leads to the ocean, that I'm going to have a different experience for sure, depending on which thing I choose, but that ultimately I'm going to have the experience I probably needed to have and that I'm going to be okay no matter what, then all of a sudden you lose your urgency, I think, because you realize you can't mess it up and you can't get it wrong. And also, doesn't this get to like the root of why are we here in the first place? Like not to get too deep, but I just did, which is like, okay, what do you think you're here to do exactly? So like, are you here to have a good time? Are you here to learn? Are you here to grow? Are you here to expand the knowledge of your infinite soul? Like, what are you here to do that you think like, and can't any choice you make end up doing any of those things potentially?
I think about, I wish I could remember which book this was from, which Tosha book. But I know it was a Tosha Silver-ism.
So probably outrageous openness.
Probably.
Maybe it's not your money.
Probably. She likes to say to the universe at large, I'm going to do this and you stop me if I'm going in the wrong direction.
And make it obvious. Like, right.
Yeah. Let me know if this is not the best next route for me. So I would say some combination of if you are really at a loss and everything feels urgent, you're feeling really overwhelmed, I would say probably pick one of 2 things. Either the area that feels easiest, most accessible, least pressury. Like, okay, well, maybe I can't figure out my whole career situation. That feels too big right now, but maybe I could just get my money in order. I could just pay attention to my bank statements and see if I could, pay off a little bit of debt and get that squared away and then deal with the career thing. That feels a little easier to me right now. Or maybe it's reverse, whatever. So you could start with the easiest thing, or maybe you start with the thing that's already taking up the most space in your brain. You're already thinking about it all the time. It feels the most impactful to your day-to-day life, and your energy's already there. Might as well go with where your energy's at instead of trying to redirect your brain to some other area that you think you should focus on. So start with the easiest thing or the thing that's taking up the most brain space, but then let the universe know, I'm going to go this direction. If I should be going in a different direction, make that clear and I'll pivot. I'm open to that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a really good way of you being intentional, but you not trying to overly control life, which I know we can tend to do sometimes, all of us.
I don't know that you can waste your life because you're already here. You're already doing it. So like, I think everything else is just extra. I know that sounds weird. I know that a lot of you are going to disagree with me about that, but I just mean that I don't know if I believe in the concept of wasting your life, because how do you know what the point was? I mean, ultimately, I guess we each get to decide what the point is. But I see people who have had lives where it's like, did they do that much? Were they happy with how they spent their life? Like older people who've passed on. And I'm like, well, but how do I know that that wasn't their soul's agenda on some level? Like, who am I to say what the point was and what the agenda was and what they learned and what they got out of it? Maybe they achieved exactly what they were meant to on some level. So, I mean, I think the point is just have experiences, learn, have a good time if you can, grow, like
get to know who you are.
Yeah, like get in touch with your intuition, learn how to feel guided potentially by something bigger than yourself, like learn how to trust. But if that's the goal, then man, anything could get you there. Lots of different paths and choices and options could get you there. So just pick one. A, you can't pick wrong. B, if you really need help picking a direction or feeling like, okay, what do I need? What is my priority? What do I focus on? Well, either pick the thing that feels easiest, like the thing that feels the lowest lift, because a little bit of momentum can then build and go a long way toward picking up momentum on other areas of your life. Or pick the thing that's like the biggest pain point that you would feel the most relief when it gets alleviated. But know that ultimately, whatever you decide to focus on, you can't choose wrong, and that your experience of time will slow down and become more quality when you single focus on something. And that you will actually ultimately get more done and you will enjoy your life more when you approach time and your choices that way.
I feel like we just put a nice old bow on that.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. This is a hard concept to tie a bow on because it's very esoteric to a degree.
Well, I think we tied a bow on the concept. Now, doing it is a different story, of course.
Sure.
Living that is its own hurdle, but understanding that truly prioritizing in the way that word was meant, which was what
one
single thing gets the most of my energy and time, is the fastest route to what you want and the best experience along the way. That is clear. I hope we've convinced you of that. Now you're going to have to deal with your mental, like the mental chatter in your brain that tries to talk you out of that, the fearful part of you. That's fine. The part that's like, normal.
My biological clock is ticking and I'm getting older every day. I have these conversations with myself all the time. And yet, because we are both human beings and spiritual beings kind of at the same time, at least that's how I see it, I am constantly having a conversation between those two entities. The part of me that's like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. And this is, oh my God, freaking out. Versus the part of me that's like, I believe in divine timing. I believe I can't miss my bus. I believe I'm probably having the experience I'm meant to have, even if I don't like it sometimes. And that's okay. Yep. Like being a human is kind of just like whoever said it. I don't remember. Carl Jung. It's always a good guess that he said it when we're talking about this type of stuff. It's like, being human and doing it well is like means becoming comfortable with living in some degree of paradox, like all the time.
Yep.
That's what
and
this
we're
is.
Not here to try to get you to spiritually bypass your humanity. That's why I don't think the goal of this conversation is to try to turn off that biological clock. You are a human. It is a fact that you will not live forever. None of us will. And it's normal if that gives you anxiety and that puts time pressure on things. There's no getting around that. We're in human form. And we don't have to let that be the driving factor for how we choose to spend that time and how we feel about what we're doing with that time in the meantime. We can be human and recognize, I do have limited time in this body, on this planet, with these people. Like, I can't change that. But
I have a good idea.
I want to spend it in a way that gives me the best experience while I'm here, because that's what it's all about. What's your idea?
Choose things that bring you the most joy. Because if you've got a limited amount of time, you might as well enjoy yourself. So choose things that will bring you the most joy, or that you think have the best chance of bringing you joy. And please do not stay in any relationships, in any jobs, in any situations out of a sense of obligation or guilt, or what do they think of me? Because that, I just said I don't believe in wasting time. I lied. I do. If you are in a situation that you know you don't want to be in, and you keep doing it out of a sense of fear or obligation or guilt, then maybe you are learning something. Maybe you are honing your soul on some level. But like, okay, you probably honed enough. You probably polished enough. Maybe now, like, life is too short not to do something that brings you joy. So that would be a good priority, is just that. Whatever helps lead you there.
Okay. Have we convinced you? How do you feel about time? I want to hear people's thoughts, because I feel like this is one that, if you're a human, you've experienced this, you struggle with this. This is part of the human condition. But my goal is to give you some relief and to help you think about it a little bit differently and release some of that pressure, because it doesn't work anyway, and it just makes time feel like it's going faster, and it's less fun all the way around and less productive. So,
okay,
let us know what you think.
Ultimately, that is, even when we have these esoteric conversations, it gets down to, but it doesn't work and it's not practical. Coming at things from a sense of urgency and scarcity doesn't work.
It feels bad and it doesn't work. So
great. So let's not do it.
Find a better way. That's what we're here to do.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously it's on the nose, and it's on the nose for a reason. If you want to make good use of your time, that is what coaching is. It is actively making really good use of a handful of months of your life so that the rest of it could be set up for success. And that's not dramatic. That's actually just true. When you change on that fundamental of a level, it really impacts, like, in a huge, profound ripple effect kind of way, the trajectory of the rest of your life. So that would be a good way to use some time.
Yeah. Maybe use the last few months of this year going into the next year. Let's be a lot more intentional with where you're putting your time and what you're prioritizing and what changes you want to make and what experiences you want to have. That's what we're here to do. So if that sounds appealing, let's talk.
Okay. Link in show notes and or clarityonfire.com, work with us page, coaching page. Look at it, fill out the application form on that page. It's not really that long. It's not like applying to college or something.
No, we don't want your SAT scores. We don't want your resume.
I don't care about that. But I do need to know some things about you that I think are important. And then we'll have a conversation and we'll see if it's a good fit. And, we'll talk about your options and all of that. And then if it's good and it's right, we'll do it. And if not, no pressure, because I don't want to waste my time working with you if you don't want to be there or you're not the right fit. Like,
not a good use of anyone's time.
I respect my time and I respect your time. And so we're not going to do it if it's not right. Okay. All right. Well,
okay.
That was what it was. We'll see what people thought about that. And we'll be back next Friday. Oh, it'll be something very different, very special. The first time ever it's been done on this podcast. That's what I'm going to say. And I'm not going to say any more than that.
I hope your interest is piqued.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be back.
Bye.